Want to know what a real sports bettor is betting in week 5 of college football? In this video, you are going to find out. Eddie Walls, what is your best bet on the board in week 5, my friend?
Hey, buddy. It's going to be Washington State Boise over 64. There is a lot of really good talking points on this game, but I'll keep it simple. I came into the season not sure whether or not Boise had fixed its defense. And I had a lot of questions because last year it was super, super leaky. And they like to blitz a lot. And week 1, I kind of got my answer when they let Georgia Southern score 44 points. And then Oregon played very, very slow, scored 37. I just have a lot of problems with this defensive game plan that they have. I just watched Washington. We got kind of lucky with that Washington weather situation. They gave up 350 yards passing in that game. They gave up 450 yards passing last week. They're coming off an overtime thriller. And let's face it, I mean, the Pac-2, it needs to be played pointsy. You know, it needs like some crazy ref situations. It needs a lot of points on a blue field. It just feels good to me. And Ashton Genty is amazing. They have great wide receivers at Boise. I made this game significantly higher, and I thought maybe there must be injuries or weather. The more I looked into it, the more I got excited about it. 64 is too low for me.
And the market will react, I assume. And here's the best part about today's show. Eddie has a bonus bet. So you get the best bet to start the show, and then he's got a bonus bet that he's going to give away at the end of the show. So make sure you stick around for that. I'm John Martin. This is obviously the RAS College Football Show with Eddie Walls. And real quick before we get to this week's slate, the guys at Right Angle promised 20 plays on FCS and Extra. They delivered 31, and they hit at 62.1%. So what they've decided to do, they're going to keep doing that, but they're going to do it as part of a Betting Talk subscription where they'll give 60 releases a year in different sports and different markets. That's college football, that's WNBA, that's college basketball, that's some NBA preseason and summer league. It's one of the best bang for your bucks you're going to find out there for just $29 a month or $295 for the whole year. So get on over to raspicks.com, bettingtalk.com, and make sure you take advantage of that package. All right, my friend, let's get into it. It's a fun slate this week in week 5. And let's start with a Right Angle release, Friday night game, Virginia Tech on the road at Miami, Coral Gables. Miami out to -18 with a total of 54. This was an RAS release at 17. It is now 18. What do you think of this game, Eddie?
I mean, you're going to have a hard time explaining the Virginia Tech side. I guess you could probably say that Miami hasn't played anybody yet. Florida doesn't have a defense. This is probably the best defense that they faced. It's probably also the slowest paced and discombobulated Virginia Tech has looked, which doesn't make any sense to me, by the way. I don't really understand what's going on at Virginia Tech, but it's messy. They couldn't score against Marshall the entire second half. I mean, they just don't look right. And they kind of went through this last year as well.
Yeah.
They picked it up after like a bye week in week 6 or week 7. But on a short week traveling to Miami with some weather, with some rain, that defensive front's probably going to have a field day for Miami. And I haven't seen anybody come close to stopping Cam Ward in that offense. So it made a lot of sense.
Yeah, totally agree with you. I mean, I had South Florida as a best bet last week, got some good CLV. It does not matter against that offense. I mean, South Florida quit. I mean, they had the backup in there midway through the second half when it was somewhat still competitive, I guess, in terms of the number. But they just tapped out, and it's hard to fade this Miami offense at this juncture. All right, moving right along. Maryland on the road at Indiana. -7 for Indiana with a total of 52.5. Again, another RAS release at Maryland, +7. What do we see here, Eddie?
I mean, this game preseason is probably a small pick, maybe -2 for Maryland. And Indiana is getting a ton of credit, and rightfully so. If you pay that kind of money, you make that kind of coaching upgrade. You update the roster with Max, quarterback of the year, with Surratt, the unbelievable wide receiver from James Madison, the James Madison defense. You're going to have a seriously upgraded team. That being said, their resume reads Florida International, UCLA, which, I mean, let's face it, that's probably the worst team in the Big Ten, if not for Purdue. And last week, they faced a Charlotte third-string quarterback. They haven't faced live bullets yet, in my opinion. There are some athletes that are legit on this Maryland team for sure. And I have a little bit of questions about Indiana's pass defense, and we haven't really had an opportunity to see a quarterback that can do that. Billy Edwards is more than capable. The pass offense for Maryland really hasn't fallen off despite losing a 4-year starter in Tagovailoa. And I hope I pronounced that right. And I think that this is definitely the best defense that they faced, at least the most complete. I just think 7 is kind of egregious. I mean, what are you giving 9 points of credit, eight points of credit to Indiana for? I mean, let's face it. I mean, their best quality win so far is UCLA, who is 25-point underdogs right now at home to Oregon. So I think 7 is just quite high.
Any thought to the total there? I saw the Maryland coach say basically we're not going to be able to out big play these guys. We're going to have to just outplay them, up and down the field. I mean, does that sound conducive potentially to an under there?
I mean, it does and it doesn't. So, I mean, you have to remember that James Madison wasn't very efficient at running the ball last year. Indiana hasn't proven, maybe possibly they haven't had to. Most of the time that they've been running the ball has been clockwise. I think there's going to be a little bit more passing in this game on both sides. But the weather is the thing that makes you want to like the under, because there's some rain, there's some wind. That could be a messy game. If that's the case, then I definitely like Maryland's side a little bit better. I know it's an inexperienced offensive line, which he was alluding to. I don't like Loxley as a coach because he gives away too much, information, in my opinion. I mean, you basically just broke down that, he's
That's right.
You want to control the clock.
He revealed
really,
strategy.
Really slow. I don't really need him to do that. But yeah, I mean, I definitely think at 52.5, 53, I could only play under at this number. I think I think that number has been knocked down because of the weather.
Right.
That weather's probably baked in there at this point.
Yeah, and I think that was a question from Ryan in terms of the total moving down, weather and the wind there. If you have a question, certainly make sure to get that in to the live show here. Jack asks, Eddie, are you saying that Indiana is a football school now?
I mean, I don't know anything about college basketball, so I know that the reference is going to be that Indiana's a college basketball school, much like Kentucky. But I mean, yeah, they spent definitely money like a real college football school. I mean, you don't go out and get Cignetti at his age and pay him what you did, put that kind of NIL money forward, not to be considered a football school. It's a damn good team. I just think 7's a lot. I mean, we backed them against UCLA pretty heavily. I remember that. And I mean, they're very, very impressive, but I just think that this is a different test. Absolutely.
Moving right along. We've got Louisville on the road at Notre Dame minus 6.5 with a total here of 45. What's your view here, Eddie?
I'm not quite sure if I recall a total getting beat up and down like this one. So it opened 48. It took humongous under money on Monday or maybe Tuesday. And then yesterday it was 44.5 and it got bet up. I needed a 49 to play under, and then I got very interested in over. I ended up doing nothing, but I'm going to tell you that I really think that this line is very, very interesting in the fact that I really don't know a lot about Louisville because they brought in so many transfers. They haven't played anybody yet. I just have a hard time staying. I don't like to bet against really, really good coaches, and Jeff Brom falls into that category. He is an extraordinary coach. And if you think he's going to go out there and not pass the ball 30 times, even if it's not successful, he's going to have a game plan for this game. That being said, my numbers like Notre Dame minus 6 in preseason, it was probably a little bit higher. They lost the offensive tackles, which brought my number down on them. I'm just passing on this game, but I'm very interested because I think we learn more about these two teams in this spot than probably any other spot for the rest of the year. I mean, you're going to be able to find out more about Louisville than we, let's face it. I mean, they really haven't been in danger at all, and they're playing at glacier pace, which isn't normal for them. Brom is usually pretty fast in the first half, slow in the second half. He's starting off games like a service academy team. I think that has to change in a spot like this. So interesting.
Yeah. A couple more here before we get into any questions that we may have on the show. Illinois off of a thrilling major win for their program in overtime against Nebraska. I mean, they were, 9.5-point underdogs at one point before the game. Now they go to Penn State. They don't have long to celebrate. Penn State minus 18 with a total of 47.5. You know, the reputation is always James Franklin knows the number. He wants to cover the number. Does that matter to you in a game like this? What do you think?
I think that James Franklin likes to cover a number when it's against FCS type of schools and smaller programs. I think he wants to win games. I think he likes to run it up is his thing against anybody. But I mean, if you're like looking at the angle of just James Franklin, like covering a number, it's probably not the best way to go. But in this spot, I'm going to be straight up. I played the over in this game.
Okay.
So there's a couple of things here. Bielema has a really, really good history against Tom Allen, defensive coordinator for Penn State. He scored tons of points on him at every spot he got against them when he was at Indiana. The other thing is this game last year was 30-13, and Altmaier wasn't himself. This year, Altmaier looks like an incredible version of himself. He has an upgraded wide receiver room. Franklin from UTSA has been everything to them. And then Pat Bryant's been really good as well. Another thing that really, I have to start bumping up my Penn State totals, because let's face it, if you look at what's happening at Kansas right now and what's happening at Penn State, it's very clear that Colton Necky, the offensive coordinator for Penn State, is really, really good. This is very far from vanilla offense they've been running the last couple of years. So yeah, 47.5 is what I played, and it's still there.
Yeah, I just sort of as an aside, I mean, I couldn't have been more impressed, and you mentioned it, you know, Altmaier on the road there last Friday. I mean, that was as gutsy a performance. I mean, he looked great. He's come a long way with his development. There's no question about that.
Sure.
And then finally, I mean, you know, this is just far and away in terms of just the viewing experience and the stakes, the biggest game of the weekend, one of the biggest games of the season, Georgia at Alabama. I believe this opened at a pick. It's out to Georgia -2. They get touched 2.5 briefly before being bought back, as you might expect. And the total here, 48.5. New coach, new regime at Alabama. Eddie, what do we think here in Tuscaloosa?
I haven't bet a game like this in probably 10 years, so I'm not going to act like I have all the answers. I mean, a game like this is not really on my radar. I make a number for it.
Right.
And I don't ever find discrepancies in these types of games. I mean, I'm just going to be honest with you. Like, I don't know how. Yeah. I mean, like, I don't know how NFL guys do it. I give it all up to everybody in the world that bets NFL successfully, the Adam Chernoffs and, you know, the Frank Bettys and Ed Goldens of the world. Hats off to you guys, because I could never imagine betting a sport where, you know, the discrepancy is maybe 1.5 points. So this is what I've got for you. I'll give you a little bit of information. Georgia is yet to give up a defensive touchdown this year. Alabama's defense looks much, much better than expected, but neither team has played much of an explosive offense. So that being said, I would probably lean playing first half under, just because I think both teams are probably pretty conservative out of the gate. I know that Kellen DeBoer likes to take his shots, but do you really want to do it with Jalen Milroe on this defense right out the gate? So, yeah, I mean, I guess I lean that way, but I mean, the chance of me putting real money on a game like this I'm just not willing to lie to you guys and tell you that I have any kind of edge in a spot like this.
Well, I appreciate that. I think our audience appreciates that. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here. You may not have an answer for me, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Georgia's offense, they really, really struggled in Lexington, and they typically do. I mean, that typically has been a tough spot for them, but are they worse than maybe we anticipated on that side of the ball? They just haven't looked as explosive as I usually am accustomed to Georgia offenses being recently.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the correct answer for that, because I think that Kentucky might have a really special defense.
Yeah.
I also think it probably comes down to the fact that, like, you know, they probably didn't expect to be in a game like that, the mid-third quarter. But do they have real offensive issues? It's so hard for me to say, yeah, they probably do, because when you have like 11 5-stars on one side of the ball, how real are the issues other than just trying to pan out what works and what doesn't in the early part of the season? I mean, this, you know, I'm not going to say like, yeah, Georgia's a great under, because for all I know, they may struggle in this game and then start putting up 52 points.
Yep.
You know, for the rest of the year. I mean, I really can't go off of a 3-game or a 1-game sample size, really. Yeah. It's just too tough to do. I mean, if we're gonna go that route, then we might have to say the same thing, you know, about Alabama defense. If they struggle in this game, do they have a terrible defense, or they just face a really good Georgia offense? It's just too early to say with these kind of. I don't like the SEC, or just personally, I don't like teams that have this much talent this early in the year, because you're really just guessing at what the
Right.
coaches are going to do in these kind of spots. It's tough.
Yeah, that'll be must-watch TV, though. There's no question about
sure,
that.
Yeah.
Pat is asking Nebraska, Purdue. He doesn't really have a question. He just has a game for you. Nebraska, Purdue. Maybe he's looking for like a haiku or something from you on this game.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you. I was on Purdue +6 last week, and about 2 minutes into the game, I was trying to figure out a way to bet live, and I couldn't justify because the numbers were so high. Purdue, I've seen a lot of really ugly versions of Purdue before. I don't think I've seen a version like this before. If you go out and hire a defensive-minded coordinator type of guy, and you have maybe the worst run defense in Big Ten history so far, you've got problems. And then if you lose your stud All-American wide receiver to Oklahoma and your stud defensive end to Texas A&M, you may have talent issues on top of it. So that being said, Nebraska is the only way I could play this, and I played it. I think Nebraska is very, very solid. I don't know if they're good. It's just with some of these teams, you're going to have a very limited window to bet against.
Right.
Let's face it, you're running out of time on the inefficiency of the market. Things catch up kind of quickly, and then your subjective matter is going to have to be good from here. So, yeah, I'm going to try and bet against Purdue for a couple of weeks. If I lose this week, I'll probably bet against them next week. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
A couple more here. Ryan says Iowa State is out to 14.5 now. Is that too far or not enough?
I think that's probably about right. I just haven't seen anything from Houston's offense that leads me to any kind of encouragement.
Yeah.
If you go to Cincinnati and you can't get 150 yards, you've got probably big problems. And they made a really, really weird offensive coordinator hire. He was a failure at Mississippi State. He's been a failure everywhere. I don't think that they necessarily liked him. I just thought it felt good for what the program that they're trying to build for the future is, which is developing a run game and a defense. I think that there is going to become a point in the season where we are talking about Iowa State playoff possibilities. That's a team that brought a ton of talent back.
Yeah.
It's just they looked ultra impressive against Iowa State on both sides of the ball, specifically offense in the second half. There's no way that you can possibly lay 14 and a half points, look at this total, and say that Houston's going to score enough points to justify it going over. So I think we're probably right around the right number now.
All right, and then we got one more, Arkansas, Texas A&M from Angelo.
I don't have anything there. I don't have any good talking points because,
yeah,
I've seen Arkansas look good only against one opponent on offense, and that was Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
They couldn't move it on UAB. They really struggled last week against Auburn. And then Texas A&M, I just don't know who the quarterback is this week.
Yep.
And it's going to be a heavy dose of run from them. So I kind of lean under, but my numbers don't like it.
There you go. All right. We promised a bonus bet from you, and then I'll give my my fourth best bet.
We're going to go that way. All right.
Yeah. We can make them wait for the, but the real headline here is I'm going for 0-4. So what is your bonus bet for week 5 here, Eddie?
I'm not going to go into any subjective detail on this game. I hope that's okay with everybody. I just think that Georgia Southern plus 3.5 is absolutely egregious. I don't know how you get to that number. I don't think that Georgia State's resume 4 weeks ago would allow you to possibly justify laying more than 3 points. I kind of have a hard time even imagining laying 3 with them personally. I just think that if you did any kind of preseason work and you looked at Georgia State, it was very clear that it was a rebuild, kind of a year zero, and they're getting a ton of credit for beating Vanderbilt in the fourth quarter comeback. Georgia Southern's getting downgraded far too much, I believe.
All right, there you have it. We're gonna try to do this. This is the week.
Dude, don't worry about it. You got this.
Derrick Rose retired today.
Oh man,
and he had some strange caption, but I think what he meant was you have to manifest it to have success. And so I'm manifesting.
I love it
right now.
Let's do it.
And I'm going to say that I'm going to give out the best bet for the week 5 edition of the show, UNLV minus 1.5. And look, this is purely a numbers game here, as most of these things are, but this was 4 with Sluka. Sluka says you're not paying me enough, I'm out. Doesn't get the raise and decides to save the year of eligibility, which could be a whole show, Eddie, in a different world that we do here. But
Sure.
Look, from everything I've read about Hajj Malik Williams, the backup, the team seems inspired by him. Multiple people have tweeted it's about time. B, from all the interviews I've seen of him, he seems like a very impressive kid. He seems mature. This is not some sort of redshirt freshman that's coming in having had 0 snaps for his career. He seems mature enough to be able to handle the transition. And then third, he left Campbell as the leader in passing touchdowns and yards. So he's done it, albeit at a lower level, but he's done it extensively. And I think that experience in a game like this, is he really worth 2.5? Is the drop off between Sluka and a guy that's been a 4-year starter somewhere? Is it really worth 2.5 when Sluka was a 44%, had a 44% completion percentage?
Sure.
I would say the answer to that question is probably not. So I will play 1.5 and hope that it stays close enough to that number, right? And hope to get off the schneid here, Eddie. That is my best bet for week 5. I don't know if you have any retort, but that's where I'm at on week 5.
I mean, I like it. I mean, I like everything that you just said. And it was a very, very close battle in camp.
Yep.
And I don't think that it's valid. I don't think that there's any reason that Sluka would be worth 2.5. That being said, I just have a little bit of concern with morale. And I do worry that, if any of this is true, where they offered him the money and they promised him the money and they didn't pay him, I worry about the other transfers on the team. But we haven't seen any movement yet. We haven't seen the big names like Catalan in the secondary, any of these guys leave yet. So as long as we don't have that information, then I feel pretty good about it.
Yeah.
I think it makes sense to me. You always make sense. I think you're being too hard on yourself. We're talking 4 game sample size here. I mean, Jesus, man. Like last Saturday, I was hiding in a closet. It was so bad at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't want my neighbors to see me.
Yes.
So, I'm going to bet the whole board every single week. And some weeks are just going to be absolute crap. I mean, you'll be fine. No worries.
One bet, right? One bet a week. It's tough. It's not easy to do, especially on Thursday. The show isn't on Monday morning.
The whole board's moved.
That's right. Anyway, look, maybe we'll do a Derrick Rose special someday. But in the meantime, in between time, thanks everybody for stopping by. If you enjoyed the Week 5 preview, hit the subscribe button below. We love the feedback. We love that you guys tune in every single week. And if you're looking for more picks, head on over to raspicks.com to follow the College Football Service, where you can catch some of Eddie's work and bet the releases with us in real time. We'll see you next week, and good luck.
Thank you so much.